Section 200.70, equipment. .010. A biomedical technician annually inspects all equipment, including electrical outlets, breaker, fuse boxes, and emergency light and power supplies, and reports in writing that the equipment is safe and operating according to the manufacturer's specifications. Stickers may be placed on individual equipment. However, written records must be maintained for 3 years. The biomedical technician. All right, I'm not going to leave this spot because these are not a dime a dozen. This profession is necessary and not always. You have to find, they all have so many different services, right? You have your equipment, right? The equipment inspection, and then usually they'll tag it with their own tag and inventory number, right? Which you should implement into your system, any numbers they put on your equipment. So when you do have your inspections for all the different parts of owning an operating center, you will be able to refer to what equipment is what piece, okay? The biomedical technician. So if I'm walking you through this so we can get there, look up medical equipment inspection companies. Okay. So they have inspection. You want them, you're looking, okay, we're the surgery center want somebody that's going to come in because you don't want to take your equipment all over the place, right? They're going to come in, they're going to test your autoclave. They're going to test your endoscope. They're going to test your suction. They're going to test, they're going to make sure all the calibrations are right on your meters, right? Your oxygen and on the anesthesia cart. So the defibrillator, everything, that's what they do. And here's a company called BME. And the thing about BME is they also rent stuff. So patient monitors, suction regulators, O2 blenders. So they'll repair stuff. They'll give you loaners, right? You find your company that works best for you. Shop around, do your price costing, all of that. But you find your people that take care of you and make sure you keep records on site. Even if they say that they keep track of them, you always keep your own records on site. Okay? So you literally can just repair anything that you need. We'll get in here later, but they can repair pieces of, if you get other parts. I help purchase equipment, so I often am sourcing out parts that are missing, right? Because when places close up, right, there's a surgery center or hospital on every other mile or less, right? And I'm in the city. And so they open, they close, and the brokers buy these, and then we go source them out. So for that aspect, medical equipment testing, you're going to need to find a medical equipment tester and then a repair person, because when your stuff goes down, they usually, because they're how connected they are, right? They would have somebody that can find a part or a piece that you need, that you have, so they can swap it out and you can have time to sterilize it before your procedure and then swap it back when yours is all fixed, right? Or they can source out your next if something's beyond repair, okay? So you're going to need this under your skin, your docket here. So here's my area. Okay, so we got that one. Electrical outlets and breaker fuse boxes and emergency light and power supplies. So with this part, and where I am in Wisconsin, our fire companies are pretty strict. Boy, you know what? I think everything's pretty strict. So they are in maybe semi-annual, I would say. It could be annual, but I'm not positive. So put this maintenance for your equipment, for your outlets, for your emergency lighting above. Those batteries go often. So sometimes they come with your alarm system. If you buy a regular alarm system, they would work with the alarm system. I do believe you need one wired to the emergency power for the event that there would be loss of power in the middle of a procedure. There would be enough to, cauterize, close, and get out with the light that's available. So when you do install your emergency lighting in the OR, I know it's over the doors, right? But make sure you have emergency lighting also in that you could finish a procedure. So you want that as your safeguard to not have somebody open on the table if something like that happened. The stickers would, like I said, be placed, but the written records. So get a printout. It is time. OR can do this. I had to do this myself, because it was and I would also communicate, back and forth between all the locations because I had to manage all the equipment for all of the locations, the satellite or the brick and mortar branches, right? And that's the best way to find out what pieces where, because we had to move stuff around too all the time, right? Between what sites, if something went down, something had to be taken over, and then it sometimes didn't always make it back to where it started from. Okay. Only surveyed equipment is used in the operating suite. And again, I go back to this just because if they see a C-arm sitting there or endoscope tower and you have nothing to do with either of those, they're going to ask why, one, isn't the doctor registered on their list that he's performing, right? That there's a pain doctor or whatever, or it's not in your delineation of privileges, right? So and if you're using it and you do whatever you do and you have an explanation for, you're the doc, you guys know what you want, what you need, and we can attest to whatever you need done, but only surveyed equipment is used in the operating suite, okay? For the initial attestation, this biomedical technician is for the annual inspection, so that would be 12 months after the inspection, by the way. And then surveyed equipment in the operating suite. So nothing that you do not use for surgery in there, not even if you're thinking about using it. You can do whatever you want after the survey, but my term here is to bring you to the attestation with success. So the next one, 0.20, the equipment specifications are kept in an organized file. And this is never a neat file to keep, I have to tell you. But what I did find was easy was a 3-inch folding, or what do they call them? The expanding file, but it doesn't have a top on it, okay? So 2 to 3 inch, because it's all the manuals, right? The operating manuals. And you're going to want that because when it does go to repair, you can look up by your sterilizer or by, your defibs if they're coding when you're not even using them or doing something. You can look up that model based on what your documents, it'll give you the number to call, and they can also refer you to a specific person to handle that piece, right? For those parts, because everything's not everywhere. You have to call around. If they say something's not available, it could be in the Midwest, in the South, Southwest, North, Northwest, get it? North, Northeast. So it just depends. There's so many things closing right now. There has to be a lot of equipment out there. But the specs would be the user manuals, anything that came with your purchase of the equipment, right? And so if you bought stuff from somebody, we would need to obtain, usually online or call the distributor, their operator's manual for that product, right? The specifications for it. But the operator's manual is a bonus. I know nothing has an operator's manual anymore, not even cars hardly. So that file for the inspection, there should be an office with this suite, right? And it could be the doctor's office for dictating the OR manager or RN a lot of times uses the nurse's station as their office, but there's this kind of information in there. So you have to determine if you want an admin filing cabinet in your office, which I would recommend. And if you have to keep it out of the OR because of space, and you have another suite that's connected and clinic side, which almost all my surgery centers had clinic connected. All of them had clinic connected. So you can, but for the inspection, it has to be somewhere that is easily accessible for them to find where you keep everything. Everybody has to know where everything is organized, right? So because this would go with the employee files, stuff like that, because it's going to be inspected every year. They have to go through the staff, all of the docs, right, to make sure all their states licenses are up, their DEAs, their board licenses, make sure all their CPR certifications, their hospital, everyone's got to prove their hospital. So keep it with that, and that would be with your logs then that would have your equipment maintenance, right? You can keep that in there instead of another binder on the shelf. I still believe I put a binder together for this or with this data on it. But now with the new age, a lot of things are changing, and I'm seeing ways to streamline things from even, as this recent. 2020 was really a year, wasn't it? Okay, so yeah, I would say keep that with your annual, and then, your OSHA would be there, all that stuff that you have to do your annual training on. There's an adequate, 0.035, there is an adequate operating room table or chair. That's no brainer. 0.40, the operating room is provided with adequate lighting in the ceiling. So I did have one doc, the plastic I was doing, the last plastic, and he wanted a different kind of light, and it was on wheels. But Quad A doesn't want anybody tripping over the light or anything, plug getting tripped over. So Quad A wants one in the ceiling. Doctors, you've been in enough surgeries to know how hot you want it in your room. So that is a luxury purchase for your profession of what you do every day. So take your time, spend some time, because that light is going to be glaring on you and while you're making your money. All right, operating room equipment list. Excuse me. An EKG monitor with pulse readout is present. Most of this stuff is going to be on or near the anesthesia cart area, right? Where the anesthesiologist is going to have their section in your OR. That's just how this world rolls. Pulse ox, must be present in both operating room and recovery room if both rooms are being used simultaneously. And I think that it would be worth looking, for the PACU, it was usually like a dual unit that would do the BP, and then the pulse monitor was connected to that as well. Because, you have to do your hour vitals. So that would be one for each stand. So each PACU bed has a stand, right? Everybody's got that one, or a table. And the pulse ox with the BP monitors, and I don't know, I think the beds come with the lactate ringer posts. And plan to have one for each. If you only do one surgery at a time, but you can't do another one until that patient's recovered. And if there is a problem in recovery, not a problem, but where somebody is nausea or can't go home for another couple hours, you can't do your next surgery, right, if you don't have separate sets. Some people have them on carts that they would just roll, so you can do whatever, but you're planning how you think you want to roll with this, right? So you would need one for the OR, and the OR one, I think that might come on the anesthesia cart. It's you have to look based on money you spend and what you want, how many different parts and pieces. I've seen anesthesia carts, man, that look like Cadillacs, leather seats and all. Blood pressure monitoring, we have that one. Standard defibrillator or automated external AEDs are present. And you know, one of the neatest things that I think was the AEDs being present and just the portability of the new age and the AEDs. So that you can have the standard type with the paddles, or you can see clearly here that AED would work. And the AED, if you did put it up, I would put it up in the nurse's station for placement, because you would just pop your head out the door to the nurse's station and grab it, because you're opening it up and you're not in a sterile anything. Anyway, none of this is sterile, right? But if you need it in PACU or lobby or something, you're not running into the middle of a surgery to grab one, which is more sterile. So put your AED kind of by your fire extinguisher, because then, you know, you have like one emergency station, right? There's more that may go there, but right now, kind of like that thinking, right? And if it has to be in the OR, then hang it near the door in the OR. And then also AEDs do have expiration dates on the pads for, I think it's mostly the adhesive. That is the reason I had to replace them. And it is expensive, but it's a maintenance thing to do. I still keep the old ones in there, use them for practicing, right? Stuff like that, so that they're not wasted. Why? Just so you just mark that it's expired. But it's still something that could save somebody's life someday. So mark it and put a different pouch or tape it to the back or whatever you want to do. Or in the case, back of the case. Anyway, just a thought on how to, because once the years start piling up and then you end up, you know, with all these extra pads, because pray to God you don't need to use the AEDs or the defibrillators, right? But when you do, you want everything to work exactly how it needs to work. Point 30, SCDs are employed for surgical procedures of 1 hour or longer, except for local. So SCDs, and you know, I believe since this came out that they have shortened recovery time. They have helped get the blood circulation. So in the OR, right, they have SCDs if they're in the OR, except for if it's over an hour, right, to keep the blood. And minimally, we had the portable units, so they would be scrubbed and then they'd get put on in PACU and prep, and then depends on the type of surgery, right? You can't put them on bilateral when you're having bilateral surgery, but anything you can do to help keep their blood and oxygen going to their brain is better. So if you get the kind that can hang on the end of the bed, that's pretty good. They are supposed to be disposable, right? I believe. So I don't know that you can reuse. And again, the vendors will carry these. Oral airways for each size of patient treated in the facility are present. I want to say this is going, and you know, it goes from one spot to the next. So you're going to need the O2 to hang on, to connect to the wall in the PACU. So depending on how you build out your OR PACU, so you can run the tubing for the oxygen to the PACU. So you just plug it in the wall like you're so familiar with in hospital treatment facilities, etc. Or you can put, I think it's a size E tank on the bottom of your PACU beds, right? But someone has to remember to turn it off afterwards, right? Even though it's air, somehow it's so expensive. And the regulators are probably even more. So technically, the cost-efficient way to do it would be to run the line in the wall, because then you have less purchasing. That you don't, like, think about how much money you wouldn't have to even spend. You just run the lines run them out, and then you're just plugging them in. They're the tubing with the I'm sorry, my the nasopharyngeal what do you want to say, the cannulas. Thank you. I'm so sorry. So the cannulas can just plug into the wall, and that saves everybody. It's got the regulator right there. So you're going to need everything that you have on anesthesia, or the anesthesia uses. So he's going to need the mask. You won't need, I think the laryngoscope would be by anesthesia, right? That wouldn't be in the rooms, but all of the, you need an ambu bag, everything which should be close by, easy to get at, because you never know what's going to happen in PACU. And anesthesia stays, it depends on how fast the patient comes out of anesthesia and is stable, right? And then they'd go. You should have, I'd say, ambu bag in the OR and one in the nurse, or where you want to put it in the PACU, where you keep your cannula tubing. And I just want to say, since you have to do CPR training every year, I don't know where you go, but support your local trainers and buy your CPR stuff. You know what I'm saying, right? Buy from them. You're supporting, the economy in a different way, right? Instead of one company. So I just wanted to throw that in there, just being a person that appreciates the assistance of others, and in that way. Where's my ambu pad here? Okay, a source of oxygen is present, which you would have to prove. Again, which would be the tanks for the OR, and then the tanks for recovery. Source of suction is present, and that's usually just in the OR. If a mechanical ventilator is present, that's only for C. It should have a continuous device which indicates a disconnect via an audible signal. So the medical ventilator, you would work with your anesthesia and your procedure type to determine if you have to breathe for somebody at your place. And then I would recommend, that's usually hospital. You need a big team if you're using a mechanical ventilator while you're doing surgery on somebody. Okay? And I don't know why I got somber, but I think it's probably COVID and just knowing what's going on with that. Electric cautery with the grounding plate, or I think almost everyone has one of those. It has to be present, so at least make sure it's out, even if it's in one of your inventory cabinets, right? Or if you have equipment cabinet with big drawers, it's kind of like a Craftsman toolbox, right? Those big toolboxes that roll around. Something like that, where, your drills and all the things that you use can lay without being tossed, right? After it's clean. So, regularly check in on there, and especially if you're the owner, pay attention to what you have. Where's it going? If it went out, is it come back yet? Keep track of your team. They get busy too. Just to make sure everybody keeps track of everything. Anesthesia machines kind of come one size fits all, but it just depends on, so there's like standards, right? So almost all of them that haven't been taken apart for something would carry all of these requests, okay? So 0.85, an anesthesia machine with a purge system to extract exhaled gaseous air out of doors or to a neutralizing system is present. If inhalation anesthesia is used, a carbon dioxide neutralizing system is required when using an anesthesia machine. An anesthesia machine is required if volatile agents or nitrous oxide are available in the facility. If total intravenous anesthesia, spinal or epidural anesthesia is used exclusively and no inhalation agents, so no nitrous, are available, an anesthesia machine is not required. If nitrous oxide alone is used, then a proper delivery system that prevents hypoxic mixture is employed. Okay, I want to put in here just my experience that nitrous oxide does more than it receives credit for. So I do want to encourage anyone that is doing surgery to talk to your anesthesia provider. I know when we did the Medicare Center, they did bring in nitrous and they do use it. So that was anesthesia's choice, right? Because they make the sedation cocktails and the recovery cocktails. So when they're trying to avoid suppressing with pain meds, right? They have their techniques. So that's their specialty, right? So I would recommend anyone and everyone, I think your anesthesia provider, and you never know what you don't know. So I believe that anesthesia machines should be in all locations of anyone in a Class C, all right? And it runs the O2 through it. It just runs, it's like one nice, neat, clean place of everything put together. That's probably why I like it the most. It's tons of pieces all put in one spot. Okay. 0.90, an inspired gas oxygen monitor on the anesthesia machine, if present, if inhalational anesthesia is used. Again, I'm going to be vague on this, but because most people are just going to use the oxygen until they work with anesthesia, and then you want to have room to grow and change. And if your anesthesia machine, so anesthesia machine will have this monitor. Carbon dioxide monitor will also be on the machine, but you need one also, by the way, that should be under facility. You need one of these in your OR because it's all closed and everyone's in there, and the circulation, right? Everyone doesn't have negative pressure. Negative pressure is very nice, by the way, so you don't have to worry about carbon dioxide poisoning or circulating germs, but make sure this is on, I think there's a monitor that's in the anesthesia machine from their exhalation that's going outside, right? So the patient's got the only one with the air that's going through the filter. So definitely make sure you have a carbon dioxide detector along with your fire detector in your OR, okay? And you want it anywhere anyway. It's $10 and it could, then you have to like open a door, right? To let some air or crack the door a little bit. Emergency power, 200.80.10. Operating room and recovery room have emergency power source such as a generator or a battery-powered inverter with capacity to operate monitoring, anesthesia, surgical equipment, cautery, and lighting for a minimum of 2 hours. If 2 or more operations and recovery rooms are used simultaneous, you have to have one for each room. So this one takes a little bit of work, but all right, here's how this goes. So if you're a generator, usually you're fine with the generator, but you have to indicate that you are aware to the inspector how many watts and amps and volts, right? You did the math. So your contractor, facilities director can help you with this, so we can figure out and write this down, because even write it in your manual, you know what I mean? So like on your page right here in your inspection manual, you would write down your main pieces of equipment. So if you need, the light is running on power, so these are going to be the outlets in your OR that are marked. Or if you have a battery, because they do have batteries, depending on watt hours, right? So you only need 2 watt hours of how many amps that you have. So, So make sure your facilities person can write down what these machines, what surgical equipment needs that you normally would run, right? If you were in the middle of a surgery, because then you might have to turn something off to work something else. So they want you to be able to adequate monitoring, right? So it could go down. You could even use the portable pulse oxes and blood pressures, but you have to manually run them. So keep that in mind when you're also looking for the blood pressure and the portable pulse oxes, right? It's a new world, so I don't even know if you need those stations and PACU anymore. I don't know. Think about that yourself. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because with the portable, they even have the wrist ones now, but someone just has to be there to record it. That's the thing. That's the convenience, right? There's a convenience cost to the cheap. I don't want to say cheap, inexpensive. So you pretty much have to do the same thing for each room. It's like, and I'm saying PACU needs its energy. And you need to, don't forget the computer in there, right? Telephones have to be able to operate. Your cell phones are fine. That's fine. If that's fine, that's fine. New world. What a new world. 0.15, the emergency power source is able to begin generating ample power to operate the essential electrical equipment used in the surgery room within 30 seconds of a power failure. The inspector will walk with you, the facility director, to the generator, unless it's on the roof, but most of them, they'll still go to the switch and throw the switch because the Medicare one had a switch. So they'll go and they'll pop the switch, and you have 30 seconds or less for your power to pop on upstairs. And I think will go up and look, or if he walks right back up within 30 seconds. I had one that was like the generator was in the basement, and or the switch and the generator, and can't recall that one. But if it's all on the same floor, they just walk to the area from where the generator switch is pulled, because none of these places are giant, right? So some of them came on within like 5 or 10 seconds. So 30 seconds is a really long time. So I think most everybody should be good on that. So this one is, he's going to walk to the OR and make sure. Might ask you to turn something on. I think mainly it's seeing that the lights are working, or he'll look up for a light on anesthesia machine, stuff like that. Emergency power, 0.20. Emergency power equipment is checked monthly to ensure proper function, and the test results are filed and kept for a period of 3 years. So there are a number of tasks for an accreditation of an OR that require monthly checks. And definitely the battery one for the floodlights is one of them. That needs to be with this, all right? So what they're doing is they're flipping the switch once a month, and then going into the, another teammate or whatever just starts working the power stuff to make sure it's all working, and then you just mark in the log that you checked it. This is easy to forget. All these little things, right, are easy to get. But I have to go back and look if it's a 2-year inspection or 3 years. I apologize. It's from the beginning. And all right, I'm going to end this one here.